Hello everybody, welcome back to another Spanish lesson. Today we're going to talk about commands. So a command is exactly what it sounds like. It's when you're telling somebody to do something, or not to do something. Grammatically, that's called the imperative tense. So in English, I can say, go ride your bike. I can say, leave this room. I can say, do your homework. We're so used to how it sounds that we don't really question the grammatical rules. But there are grammatical rules in English and Spanish that indicate to the listener that you are giving a command and not just saying something. So that's what we're going to start talking about today. We won't cover everything today in this one video because I think that will be overwhelming. Instead, we're going to take it slow, take everything one at a time so that you can let it sink in and really understand things easily. I think if we go too fast, it will become too confusing. So we're going to focus on 4 main types of commands. There are other types, but this will cover, I would say, 90% of what you're going to end up talking about. So you'll notice that I'm talking about informal affirmative. So affirmative is telling somebody, yes, do something, this is what I want you to do. Informal negative, telling somebody what not to do. Formal affirmative, which is usted, telling somebody what to do formally, and then formal negative, telling somebody formally what not to do. There are other rules about speaking to groups, about speaking for nosotros, we, but if you think about it, most of the time when you're giving a command, it's to the listener. So we'll talk about those later after we cover these. Today we're just going to talk about informal affirmative. Okay, so for commands in the informal affirmative tense, you are telling the listener to do something. And in order to do this for regular verbs, you're going to use the third person present tense conjugation. Not the second person, the third person. Irregular verbs may have a special form. And the last thing you need to know is that if you're using a pronoun, you need to add an accent to the last syllable of the verb stem. So what is the verb stem? If we're talking about the verb correr, the stem is just take off the ER or the AR or the IR. So for correr, the verb stem would just be CORR. For andar, which means to walk, ANDAR, just take off the AR, the verb stem would be AND. So when you're adding a pronoun to something, we already know one type of pronoun, right? The reflexive pronouns. That's the me, the te, se. So we know that sometimes for reflexive verbs, depending on the sentence, those will get tagged on to the end of the word. So basically what this last rule is saying is when that happens and you're giving a command, you have to add an accent to the last syllable of the verb stem. And reflexive pronouns aren't the only type of pronouns. There's also indirect and direct object pronouns. Don't worry too much about that. What I want you to worry about today is the grammatical rules of how you give commands. Just worry about where you're going to put that accent. And if you're learning Spanish just to speak it, this rule isn't going to really affect you. This is more for writing. So let's go back to the first 2 rules, because speaking, those are going to be the rules that are the most important. When you're giving a listener an informally an affirmative command, you're going to use the third person present tense conjugation of that verb if it's a regular verb. If it's an irregular verb, they may have a special form. And this is a different verb tense from the present tense. So again, like regular and irregular verbs of the present tense, you're just going to have to learn by exposure which verbs are regular, which ones aren't. But I will give you a list today of the most common verbs that have an irregular form for this command. Okay, so let's just go over some examples. You already know how to conjugate things in the third person present tense. So 1, correr. So what's the third person form of correr? Yo corro, tú corres, él corre. Okay, so it's going to be corre. Okay, corre, Forrest, corre. I couldn't resist. That means run, Forrest, run. You are telling the listener, run. And remember, even though you're using the same form, that's the third person form, it's a command to do. So don't be confused by that. This command is to the listener. It's to do. But it's grammatically, the form that is used is identical to the third person present tense. Don't let that confuse you. Okay, 2, tomar. What is the third person grammatical present tense of tomar? Yo tomo, tú tomas, él toma. Okay, so the affirmative command is going to be toma. Toma un vaso de agua. That means drink a glass of water. Escribir. Yo escribo, tú escribes, él escribe. Okay, so the command affirmative is going to be escribe. Escribe un ensayo sobre el libro. Write an essay about the book. Okay? Dar. That means to give. Él da. So the command is going to be da. Dame las llaves. So here we have one of those pronouns we were talking about before. Me indicates who you're giving to. So I'm saying give me the keys. This pronoun is attached directly onto the end of the verb for the command. So it's not a separate word. It's attached directly on. When you're writing it, there's no space in the middle. Dame. Dame las llaves. But the da is the part that comes from the verb dar. Dame las llaves. You may be asking yourself, where is the accent? But there is no syllable before the verb stem for dar. For escribir, you see you have this whole word before the IR. For tomar, you have tom, the syllable before the stem. But in dar, there is no syllable before the stem. There's nowhere to put the accent. So dame does not have an accent. 6, sentarse. This is a reflexive verb. So what would the command be? Okay, well, let's look at it. We know how to say siento, sientas, sienta. Okay, so the stem is going to become sienta. And then if you're telling the listener to sit, the se must become a te, because that's the you form, that's the tu form, that's the second person form. So se is going to become te, and then sentar is going to become the third person, sienta, even though it is a command to the second person, tu. So, as we learn in our reflexive verb, this is going to stay on the end of the word here. Siéntate, por favor. The command becomes siéntate. And here you can see the accent. So if we cover the verb stem here, the accent will go on the syllable before. Siéntate. This is just the base of the verb. Siéntate, the last part. Siéntate, por favor. Okay. Our last example is going to be comprar. Comprar is not a reflexive verb, but in this sentence, comprar means to buy. We are saying buy something for me. So you're using the pronoun again, me, to indicate that you're doing something for me or to me. So how are we going to say this? Well, what is the command going to be? Comprar. Yo compro. Tú compras. Él compra. Okay. So the affirmative command is going to be compra, and I'm saying compra something for me. I'm going to attach that me, right onto the end. Cómprame un regalito. So regalito means a gift. Cómprame means buy me. Buy me a gift. It's a command. I'm saying buy me a gift. I could say cómprame un regalito para mi cumpleaños, for my birthday, something like that. And you'll see the accent here goes on the last syllable before the last syllable of the verb stem conjugated. Cómprame un regalito. Okay, guys. So these right here on this page are the most common verbs that have an irregular tu command form for the affirmative. So decir becomes di. Decir means to say. Hacer, to do, becomes haz, H-A-Z. Poner becomes pon, P-O-N. Tener becomes ten, T-E-N. Salir becomes sal, S-A-L. Ir becomes ve, V-E. Venir becomes ven, V-E-N, and ser becomes se, S-E, with an accent over the E. So you've probably heard some of these before, even just basic Spanish. If you've heard a song, if you've seen a movie in Spanish, if you watched a movie where somebody was speaking Spanish to somebody else, these are very common, and that's going to really help you learn them, because you're gonna, if you try to say this in the third person, you're gonna be like, that doesn't sound right. For example, venir means to come. Ven acá. You've probably heard that. That means come here. If you tried to conjugate that into the third person, something in your brain would tell you that doesn't sound right. I know that when I hear people on TV say come here, they say ven acá. So irregular, the tu form for venir is ven. You come here, ven acá. Decir, di, dile hola, tell him hi. Hacer, haz. Okay, well, we'll actually go over some examples here. Let me not get ahead of myself. Okay, so first, hacer. That's irregular, so you just have to know that one. Haz, H-A-Z. Haz tu tarea. Do your homework. Decir, we know that's di. Dime qué piensas. So this me means who you're telling it to. Decir means to tell or to say. Dime, tell me. ¿Qué piensas? What you think. Dime qué piensas. Tener, we know that becomes ten. Ten cuidado, por favor. Be careful, please. In Spanish, when you say be careful, it's grammatically, the straight translation would be like have caution. So ten cuidado, por favor means be careful, please, and it uses ten, which is the command of tener, to have. Poner becomes pon. Pon tus llaves ahí. Put your keys there. Tus llaves are your keys. Ahí means over there. Pon is the command of poner. Pon tus llaves ahí. Salir becomes sal. Sal de aquí. That means leave here. De aquí means from here. Sal is the command, the informal command for tú. Sal de aquí. Leave here. And lastly, decir again. Dile que me amas. Okay, I had to give you guys a useful example that you'll probably hear in songs and things like that. All of these are pretty useful, to be honest. You're going to hear these words a lot. But dile que me amas. So di, we know that means I want you to tell somebody something. What is le? So le is a pronoun that means the third person, somebody else. So me would be me, te would be you. Le means we're talking about somebody who's not in this conversation. It's the third person form, he or she. So dile means tell that other person. Dile, tell that other person que. You say dile que, tell them that. Que means that in this context. Me ama. So there's actually quite a lot going on in this sentence. Amar means to love. So who is loving here? We can tell from amas, as, that you love. I'm saying you love. And then me amas, you love me. So dile que me amas. I can tell from this sentence the form of dile. Di means I'm telling you to do something. So dile, tell somebody else que me amas, that you love me. So I'm telling the person, I'm giving them a command to tell somebody that that same person loves me. So you'll probably hear things like this in songs, in movies, in romance movies. Go watch a movie in Spanish. There's a big chance you'll hear all of these words. That's it for today. Let me know if you enjoyed this lesson, if it was easy. Did I get anything wrong? Is there anything that you'd like to add? And next time we will go over how to tell somebody not to do something in the informal tense. That the grammatical rules for that are a little different. But as you can see, the affirmative command for informal is very easy. For the most part, you're just going to be taking the third person form of the present tense conjugation and using that as a command. And then there's some irregular ones that you have to know, but they're very, very easy and they're used so commonly that you're going to really quickly develop an intuition for how to do it. Okay, guys, see you next time.